This is a category that I think Milani does better than any other drugstore brand out there. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 10 Milani products that I personally think are just as good, if not better, than luxury makeup. And these are all a fraction of the price you would pay at higher end retailers. And just overall, I think Milani is one of my favorite drugstore brands. They're just so high quality, and I rarely try a product from them that I think is terrible. So I am really excited to share these products with you. And if you like this style of video, I also have one that I did for Maybelline and one for Revlon that I'll link at the very end of this video. And that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. All right, guys, so let's start out with complexion first. So there are two complexion products from Milani that I think are fantastic, and neither one of them is foundation. Unfortunately, I've never tried a Milani foundation that worked for me, but their Conceal and Perfect concealer is one of my top favorites that I have repurchased so many times. This concealer is thin, it's lightweight, but it also packs a punch in terms of coverage. It hides any darkness or discoloration under and around my eye area, while at the same time hydrating my dry skin and not settling into the fine lines or looking cakey. I think it also dries down really fast, so it doesn't end up creasing under my eyes. And it's just one of the smoothest concealers that I own. So I think this is a top-notch formula. I reach for this one more often than some of the higher end brands that I have that cost many times more money. So this is such a good concealer, and to think I almost didn't try it because I'm not a fan of their Conceal and Perfect foundation. I found that to be kind of dry on my skin, and it was a little thick and a little cakey. But the concealer is just a night and day difference. It is so beautiful. Definitely one of my top favorites in my makeup drawer. And the other complexion product from Milani that I think stands out above everything else is their Make It Last setting spray. This is the original. They do have a couple of other versions. I think they have one with charcoal in it that's supposed to be more mattifying. For me and my dry skin, I find the original to be just perfect. I think they have a dewy one as well, and they also have one with SPF in it. So again, my favorite is just the original. I think this is such a good setting spray. It rivals higher end brands like Urban Decay's All Nighter. I think this is a great alternative to that. It really does help your makeup to last so much longer. And I tend to use this more in the summertime when I really feel like my makeup tends to wear away a little bit faster. If I'm going out in the heat, if I'm going to be out for a while, that's typically when I'll use this. And this isn't a product that I use on a daily basis. It does have alcohol in the formula, kind of high up on the list, and I think the alcohol is probably what makes it so effective at just really drying down your makeup and making it last. But having dry skin, it's not something that I want to spray on my face on the daily. But on days like today, when it is 97 degrees outside, if I'm gonna go out, I definitely want to spritz a little bit of this on. And I find that if I just use it, every once in a while when I need it, it doesn't dry out my skin. Next up, let's move on to blush. This is a category that I think Milani does better than any other drugstore brand out there. I just have so many favorites. The first one being probably the first product from Milani that I ever tried. It's their Baked Blush. These blushes are such an incredible formula, especially if you have drier skin or if you have mature skin. Baked blushes, you've probably seen all of the Laura Geller commercials that are out there. Baked blushes start out as a cream and then they bake them into a powder. But because they started out as a cream, they retain those properties of a cream blush. So they just are so much smoother on your skin than a powder that's been pressed into the pan that was always a powder, if that makes sense. So these go on your skin very lightweight, very smoothly. I wouldn't say that they're a creamy powder blush. They definitely have a drier finish, but I think that's what makes them kind of glide across your skin so nicely and just sort of float over like lines and pores. Now, these baked blushes do have varying degrees of shimmer in the formula, so they're gonna give your cheeks that little bit of a glow. Some of them are more of a satiny glow, like Berry Amore, for example, or Rose d'Oro. These two are some of my favorites when it comes to the satiny finish. Then there are others like Dolce Pink and Coralina, which are a little bit more sparkly on your cheeks. So if you don't want the little glitter particles, I would stick to the ones that are a little bit more satiny. But overall, these give my cheeks that beautiful sheen. So if I want that highlighted look without having to add an additional highlighter, I always reach for these because it gives me the blush with the glow in one step. And I find that these really don't exaggerate my texture as much as some other glowy blushes do. So love the baked formula. Another oldie but a goodie when it comes to Milani's blushes are their rose powder blushes. This is another formula that I've had in my collection for so many years. And these remind me a lot of the Tarte Maracuja blushes. When you touch these in the pan, very similar to the Tarte, they have kind of that hard packed, hard pressed sort of feel. So you're not going to get a bunch of powder kick up. And as you kind of swirl your brush into the pan, you kind of think, am I actually picking product up? Because you don't really see it happening. But then when you go to apply it, you realize it's definitely there. They're just not an overly powdery blush. They are very thin, very lightweight, and when they go on your cheeks, they're just so smoothing. And I think that's the thing that I appreciate so much about the Tarte ones, is that they don't have that powdery look. They just sort of melt into your skin. These are the same way, and they're also really long lasting like the Tarte ones. Either way, this is definitely another blush from them that's worth mentioning, even though it's older and people really don't talk about them that much. I think they are really beautiful. Another blush from Milani that is one of my favorites are their Cheek Kiss cream blushes. I have a bunch of different colors. These are one of my favorite cream blushes of all time, not just at the drugstore. And what makes them so nice is that they're just really easy to use. Sometimes cream blushes can be a little bit finicky, especially if you're a beginner, but these, even the bolder colors, when you go to pick them up, they just apply to your skin so easily. They blend out like a dream. They dry right to a powder. So they just glide across your skin and you don't have to worry about them picking up your foundation underneath. They're not sticky or goopy. And I find that no matter how you want to apply these, if you're using your fingers, if you're using a brush, or a sponge, these just apply effortlessly. And again, I feel that they're very long lasting on my skin. They're just one of the best cream blushes out there. And I've tried so many different formulas from Sephora. I just keep going back to these because they're so easy to work with. And when I'm in a rush to do my makeup in the morning, which I usually am, this is just an easy thing to grab quickly, apply, and go. So if you want a cream blush that just looks really natural and almost looks like the blush is coming from within your skin rather than sitting on top, I think these are an amazing choice. I also want to give honorable mention to the Milani Cheek Kiss liquid blushes too. Those I don't have anymore because the tubes that I had were really old, and when I tried to apply them to my hand before this video, I realized that they had kind of discolored, so I think they just went bad. I've had them for years and years, but it's definitely a formula that I would repurchase because they, again, kind of like the cream ones, they're just really foolproof, really easy to use. They're not too pigmented, but they're not pigmented either. I just apply a little dot to the back of my hand and then I'll pick it up either with a sponge or a brush and just dab it on, and I feel like they just melt into your skin. They kind of have a serum-like texture. So if you're familiar with something like the Flower Beauty blush bombs, they're kind of like those, but maybe not quite as dewy. I think the Milani ones dry down a little bit better to a powder finish, and that's usually what I prefer when it comes to cream and liquid blushes. So I just wanted to give those an honorable mention because I think those are really great too. Next up, also in the cheek category, I think Milani also makes one of the best bronzers at the drugstore, and this is just one of my favorite bronzers in general, whether drugstore or high-end. So it's their Silky Matte Bronzer. I have it in the shade 2 Sunkissed, which is a little bit on the cooler tone side, but it's still not cool like a contour. It's got a little bit of warmth to it, which I think a bronzer should have. I find that this doesn't have an orange or a yellow undertone, which so many bronzers do, and those kind of clash with my skin because I have a pink undertone. And while this doesn't have the pink undertone that I usually like in a bronzer, it's just very neutral. I find that it doesn't really lean toward any of those undertones. It's just Like I said, it's a very neutral brown, and I think that's really what would make it work for a variety of undertones and skin tones. It's actually something that's not very easy to find. But in addition to the color, I also just love this formula. It is so silky. I mean, the name Silky Matte is so accurate. It's one of the easiest bronzers to apply. It is a little bit pigmented, so just be careful. I try not to pick up too much. I usually tap my brush off before I go to apply it. But once you put this on, it doesn't look muddy on your skin, and it just has this beautiful silky glide when you're applying it. So it just blends out really evenly. It looks very smooth on your skin, and it doesn't grab to certain areas or look patchy. It's just really, like I said, very even and really smooth. So like I said before, this is hands down my favorite bronzer at the drugstore, and just one of my favorite bronzers in general. It's one that I reach for so often. Now, when it comes to eyes, I would not really recommend any of Milani's eyeshadows. They're okay, but they're not my favorite. I don't feel like they rival high end, and that wasn't always the case. Milani's eyeshadows used to be one of my favorites of all time. And then they changed their formula to the one that they have now, which they've had for several years, and I keep hoping that maybe they'll go back to what they had before or just change to something new and different. But I just find the current ones to be a little bit powdery, and they just don't last on my eyes. They fade really quickly. So I can't really recommend any of their eyeshadows, but I do hear that their eyeliners are fantastic. I still have to check those out. I think they're called the Stay Put eyeliner. I've heard several different people on YouTube talking about them and how great they are. So those are on my list. But I would say if I had to pick one thing from the eye category that I really love, it's their highly rated anti-gravity mascara. This is such a good mascara, and you guys know I normally love tubing formulas, but this is one of the non-tubing formulas that I think just gives me such great length and volume and kind of that long wispy vibe, and it helps my lashes to stay curled up, which a lot of mascaras don't do. I think so many are too heavy and they weigh your lashes down. This one is a nice lightweight formula, but at the same time, it isn't one of those dry mascaras where you feel like you have to keep layering so much of it. It's really kind of the perfect in between. It's not too dry and it's not too wet. It's very buildable. It doesn't get clumpy. And in the end, I feel like it gives me tons of length, tons of volume, and that curled up look that I really love. So again, I think this is one of the best mascaras at the drugstore. I would say this and the Maybelline Sky High and the L'Oreal Telescopic are my three top favorites. And then another category that I think Milani does exceptionally well are lip products. They have so many great formulas to pick from. One of my favorites is the Fruit Fetish lip oils. These not only smell really good, they all smell like what the names are. They also just have this thicker, cushiony texture where, you know, a lot of lip oils can kind of be too thin and you put them on and they just sort of disappear. These actually hug your lips, they last a long time, and even when the shine and the color wear away, I feel like my lips are still hydrated afterwards for hours. To me, they're kind of like a cross between a lip balm and a gloss. They have that really deep hydration of a balm, yet they have that glossy shine at the same time, but they're not sticky like a lip gloss would be. So I just think these feel really nice. They come in so many beautiful colors. Like I said, they all smell really good. They mostly have different fruity scents, but the fruit doesn't smell fake. It kind of smells like the actual fruit. So they're really yummy. And I just think the formula is top notch. They're probably one of the most hydrating lip oils that I've tried. So absolutely love these. I also wanted to mention the Color Fetish matte lipsticks. I'm not really someone who loves matte lipsticks at all. I have really dry lips, and most of the time I'm trying everything I can to just hydrate them. But for a matte lipstick, these aren't too bad. They do have that kind of powdery texture. So I typically like to put on a lip balm first and then apply this on top of that. And you still get that matte finish. They just don't feel quite as dry as if you apply them alone. So that's just one tip. If you do want matte lips like I'm wearing today, just put down a balm first and you should be good to go. So these, like I said, they're not really something that I wear that often. Usually I'm going for something a little bit more glossy. But as far as matte lipsticks go, these are really near the top of my list, and that includes high-end formulas that cost way more money. Another thing that I love to do with these is apply them as a cream blush. I think they are perfect for that because they have that powdery texture. They just blend on your cheeks so beautifully. I'm actually wearing this color on both my lips and cheeks. This is the shade Secret, and actually, fun fact, this is an almost spot-on dupe for Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk. So if you like that color, this is a fraction of the cost and pretty much the same. But I just love how these blend on your cheeks. You just dab it on. I just blend it with my fingers. It's so quick and it doesn't feel sticky or greasy because it's that drier formula. So it doesn't disturb your foundation, and this is so long lasting as a cream blush. It's amazing. I remember in a dupe video a couple of years ago, I compared these to the Hourglass Vanish blush sticks because they have that same really thin formula with the powder feel. And also because they're matte and they're not dewy, I feel are a little bit longer lasting than a lot of other cream blushes on the market. So that's just one more reason that I love these, and I'm super into like matching your blush and your lip product because then you don't have to think about whether they coordinate. It's the exact same color. But I think just as far as using a lipstick as a cream blush, these work better for that purpose than just about anything else in my collection. So I love that these are a great 2-in-1 product. Also from the Color Fetish line, I had to talk about their original Color Fetish lipsticks. So these are more of a glossy, balmy lipstick. And if you miss the Revlon Glass Shine lipsticks, these are pretty much the exact same thing. They have that really buttery, melty, smooth texture. This happens to be the shade Nylon. But if you're like me and you don't love wearing the matte formulas, these, like I said, they're just so buttery. They leave a little bit of a glossy shine, but they're not too thick or goopy. I think they have a nice thin formula. So if you don't love the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lips because you find them to be too melty, I think these have that same buttery feel, but in a thinner texture that doesn't feel quite as thick on your lips. Like I said, these remind me so much of the Revlon Glass Shine lipsticks that were discontinued. These are getting a little bit harder to find. I don't see them in all stores, but I've seen them at Walmart. I've seen them at least on Ulta's website. I don't know if they're in store. And kind of like the flower blushes, these are another product from Milani I don't hear a lot of people talking about. I think everybody was going crazy over the matte ones when they first launched. They kind of went viral, but these came out first, and I saw people talk about them initially and then they never brought them up again. But in my opinion, they are so nice and they come in so many beautiful colors as well. They also don't seem to have a scent either. The matte ones smell like vanilla, but these I don't really discern anything. So if you're sensitive to fragrance, that's yet another bonus when it comes to those. So anyway, guys, those are my favorite Milani products that I think rival high-end brands. If you'd like to see Maybelline or Revlon, I have those two videos right here that you could check out next if you have some time. And I want to thank you all so much for spending time here with me today. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and I will see you all in my next one. Take care, guys. Bye.